This is the Ask Faleskini podcast, where the modern economy is discussed from a skeptic's perspective. Mr. Faleskini helps you distinguish what is sustainable in our economy and what isn't. Not everything that glitters is gold, and not all mud is dirty. The podcaster Mr. Faleskini provides no-nonsense advice. He had it all, lost it all, went bankrupt multiple times, and is now attempting to come back from zero with sustainable growth. There are numerous coaches and preachers on the internet that preach about positive thinking and how life is all roses if you just care to see it that way. Well, Mr. Faleskini is definitely not one of them. We recommend you ask Faleskini to keep it real. He discusses the darker side of the current economic reality, the side that's more important for your personal and business finance. His first intention is to help you keep what you already have. Not to be a complete party pooper, Mr. Faleskini will also hint at the earning opportunities in the economy today. In order to please the almighty algorithm, please like, share, and subscribe. And now it's time to start taking notes. The mic goes to the podcaster, the one and only Mr. Faleskini.
Welcome to the Ask Faleskini podcast with a guest. I'm proud to present Nicole Zeno from Scottsdale, Arizona. Nicole is a marketing leader and entrepreneur working to empower other entrepreneurs to actualize their goals and help more people. Nicole, please tell us more about yourself. What is your story?
Well, thanks for having me on. My story is I come from an entrepreneurial family. I grew up, my parents were small business owners and entrepreneurs, so I grew up around it. And as I got into the industry, whether it's marketing business, I started a few companies, exited those. And as I got into the industry, I realized that my passion lied with small business owners and startup founders, and really just decided that that was where we were going to go. We were going to find that puzzle piece that how can we help them grow in ways that, you know, using lessons that I learned from corporate, from starting my own businesses, from growing up around it, right? How can we use all of those lessons and then really help other small businesses grow? And that's what our agency here at Clever Cow Media does.
Thank you for this introduction. I have one question I would like to start with.
Okay.
You come from entrepreneurial background, and I would like to have your take on how important are startups.
Startups are really important. I think that there's a difference between startups and small businesses for sure, but both play their part in the ecosystem. Small businesses really do create the culture and the communities that we love to live in, right? So we always look at, entrepreneurs like to look at these big startups from Silicon Valley that are hitting unicorn status and making millions of dollars and starting a lot of jobs. But at the end of the day, where you want to live and the culture that is built in these main streets and these communities are small businesses. And so, you know, we actually are seeing this here in Phoenix, Arizona, where we're getting a lot of big startups, a lot of semiconductor and healthcare companies coming into our ecosystem, bringing people from, you know, San Francisco and New York. There's a lower cost of living here and amazing weather. I don't know where you're at, but the weather here is really nice. It's you know, December and we can be outside in t-shirts and shorts and people love that, right? But what they're seeing is that we still need programming for small businesses, for startups, because the main street activities like theater companies and restaurants and, you know, mom and pop shops is really where the culture comes in that people want to live in. And that's where we have to really support the small businesses. And then startups are very close to my heart because startups are the ones who are really innovating and disrupting the world in general, right? They see a challenge, they see a problem, and they need to solve it. And without a lot of the red tape of a corporation, they can solve it. They can do things quicker and move more agilely, and they can have more diverse teams that think about products from different angles. I was just asked recently how having more women in startups would help. And if you think about it, women can look at the same challenge and have a different problem or a different use case for it. And so they can think through another feature set or another solution that a company that's fully men can't think through or may not have thought through. And so the diversity of whether it's gender diversity, racial diversity, religious diversity, all of those diversities in startup and small business culture will really just increase the amount of revenue, the amount of feature sets, and amount of solutions that are out there. So startups and small businesses, I think, have a really important part in our world.
Okay, I don't share your opinion entirely, although I was the owner of most innovative startup in one of the EU countries in 2011. But my take is that startups are hyped and overhyped. Of course, we all love to work with them because they don't have the slightest clue about the pricing, so we can charge whatever we want. And because of all the $billion of funds behind them, they don't care. They just burn through money like there's no tomorrow. So we all love to work for them. That's my take as a consultant. But I would strongly agree with you that the most important are small businesses. And I also agree with all my heart that culture and communities are the key. I have a huge problem, or let's say negative experiences with startups and putting together people from different culture and different backgrounds. And this disrupts the company culture, let's say, to the fundamentals. So what you can do is somehow what most of the startups are doing, they're just overpaying people so they don't complain too much. But if you have, you're on the budget, this diversity, it's really hard to handle. Of course, if you are a global corporation, you need diversity in order to be able to achieve certain markets and similar goals. But I think this is really extremely hard to handle, and diversifying it beyond that, you need somehow equilibrium of men and women in the company. I'm wholehearted about that. That's really important that you have this equilibrium between men and women in the company. However, diversifying it beyond that with people from different backgrounds, with people from different culture, it's a huge problem, because startup already needs people from different with different expertise, and lawyers have completely different culture than technical developers or marketing people. So I'm really conservative about all the disruption that startup costs, but I do believe that some of this disruption is extremely beneficial and have helped our society evolve in some way. So
I don't necessarily disagree with you in some of those points either. I think that, you're absolutely right. There's lots of business startups out there who are taking money and don't know what that money's for and just like throwing it at the wall. But I also think that, there are a lot of them out there that are really, I work with the Arizona Commerce Authority, and they have a lot of programming to try to teach startups what they need and what should they take on and why are they going to spend it and where are they going to put it, right? And really thinking through that. So there is a lot of good startups out there as well, but you're right. There is a problem with money just being thrown around. And with the diversity, there are studies that show that companies and organizations that have a diverse between gender at the highest levels of executives actually create about 14% more revenue per year than companies that are one way or the other. And when we're talking about diversity, we don't even just need diversity in a specific organization or a startup, right? Like you said, startups are hard. They don't have a lot of resources. They don't have a lot of time. Maybe they have money that they're throwing around, but for the most part, they have to go do with what they have to do, right? They have to be as most efficient as possible. But also the diversity within the industry, right? If we have 5 companies that are all run by men, and then we have one company that comes in and it's run by a woman, or 5 companies that are all run by, men of a certain race, and another company comes in with a different perspective, they're going to build a product that's going to be different, right? And so maybe it's just diversity within an industry or within, a vertical or a niche that really helps us build different products for different people's challenges.
No, I 100% agree with you on that. You need diversity if you want diversify your product portfolio. That's helpful. However, my biggest concern is that diversity also brings a lot of problems. And it needs to be run really professional in order to increase productivity. In most cases, startups have enough problems as it is because they're starting and they're venturing into unknown. So I also like the programs you're talking about where you help startups. As I said, I would never recommend for a startup to be as diverse beyond certain measure because it will just complicate the things in the beginning. However, when you go out of a startup phase, I'm 100% about diversification, especially if you're going on the new market. You need people from that area, from that market. I'm 100% on that. I would like to have your opinion on another topic.
Okay.
You are young and extremely successful. You are on the under 40 list. And how important is to have young people in there? We know that the founder of KFC was 65 years old when they founded KFC. And it's extremely successful now, or perceived as being successful. How important is to have younger people in a company? Is that just a part of diversification, or do you see it in any other angle?
Yeah, this is a really tough question. I'm pretty torn on this because I have to say, being someone who started businesses, I started my first company that I exited right out of college, starting businesses really young and now having a successful business and multiple successful businesses as I get older. The one thing, and I think Mark Cuban has said this before, and a few other entrepreneurs have said this before, is that there are certain things I did when I was younger that I was naive and probably wouldn't have made the same decisions, but they worked out for the better, right? And then there's certain things that nowadays that I look back and I say, oh, I could have made that company so much more successful if I knew what I knew now, right? And so I think this is where we're talking about, right? Like, is it better to be naive and just go into it and jump and make that decision? That's what a lot of startups do. Or is it better to have these advisors or these people who understand them and are experienced really guiding it? And I think that you need a mixture of both. A lot of these big corporations have trouble attracting a younger generation of fans, and that's why they become irrelevant, right? And we can, cite case study after case study of this, right? Especially in like sports leagues. Like, look at golf. Golf has had the PGA has historically had an issue bringing younger fans to the sport, and then they start having these ebbs and flows of, a lot of viewership, a lot of downtime, And then you have brands like Barbie, right? They just came out with that Barbie movie. They became more relevant than ever, but they were looking at a brand that was irrelevant. And this is where, knowing what the younger generation is having emotional responses to, the problems and challenges they're having that you can solve, building products that they want to use, it's going to help keep you relevant. And so you kind of have to have a little bit of both. If you're a founder or a business owner who's young, I always recommend having what I call a personal board of directors, which is people in your life who have experience in different pieces, not everything, in different pieces that you can go to and actually ask their opinion. And whether or not you take it, that's your decision, right? There's plenty of historical data that shows that there's really no rules in this, right? There's rules you can break and there's rules you can't. But having that wisdom to walk back on and like think through your problems and think through your decisions is really important, but also not losing the ability to jump in and just do it, right? And I think that that's when we're younger, we have that ability to like be naive. And it really has helped in my career, at least, not hold me back from thinking, to like allowing my brain to stop me by overthinking it, right? So I think that you need a little bit of both, and that's, like we said, that diversity that's in there.
Thank you. I like your answers, especially because of the old advisors. That is where I come in. So I would like to go to the Barbie movie. Back to the Barbie. Right now, most of the films are shot by or produced by old established producers. In the 80s, there were a lot of movies that were shot by independent production. How would you compare this independent production with a startup company?
Ooh. You're like really speaking my language here. So I actually went to school and studied at the School of Visual Arts in Manhattan for video production, and then was out in LA producing and directing music videos when I started my first company. And one of the things I realized was that being a producer and director is a lot like running a company, being a CEO or an executive, right? There's a lot of the same skill sets that you learn, that you use. And it's really interesting. But I've worked on indie films, and one of the things that's really similar to a startup is that you're kind of trying to get it done on the least amount of money, the least amount of resources, the least amount of time, right? As efficiently as you can. And so whether that you may not be able to rent all the best equipment, or like, for instance, we were shooting a film in New York City and we didn't have a dolly. So we literally put someone in a wheelchair, and someone was running around pushing the director of photography in a wheelchair, shooting the shots, right? And so you have to become really creative. You have to become problem solvers in the moment. You have to figure out how to do this. And at the end of the day, it's how hard you work, right? I get startup founders all the time who come to, our company and try to pay us to do all the hustle work that they have to do in the beginning. And I know that hustle culture can be a little bit toxic, but at the end of the day, if you have to be out and handing out flyers in the front of a gym to get your product out there, that might be what you have to do in the beginning, right? And so with indie films, it's the same way, right? You sometimes hit it big, you sometimes have a great story, and the film becomes major. But at the end of the day, you're trying to problem solve, build creative solutions. You are trying to be the most efficient. And it's the same thing with an indie versus, a huge production. Production houses give you money. That's basically what they do. They give you money, which can give you resources, which can give you the best equipment. It doesn't mean you're going to have a great story. And it's the same thing with startups, right? Just because venture capital gives you money doesn't mean you're going to have the people who can run the company the right way or make the right decisions. Being a good business person is a skill set, not just anyone can do it. And I've seen this time and time again where people just make bad business decisions and it's not the product, or vice versa, right? You can have all the money in the world and have a terrible product, right? So these are all things that are very similar. I think the movie industry and the startup business world are extremely similar.
Thank you for these insights. I would like to have another point of view. I'm really interested in. You mentioned that in a lot of cases in startups, the hustle is not possible to avoid, and I would agree with that. However, how would you recommend for our listeners, what is the balance between how much you have to hustle how much you have to outsource, and how to avoid burnout. I think burnout is one of the let's say the most dangerous things that can happen to startup owner.
Yeah. I 100% agree. And I've been there. I've been burnt out. I've had to pivot, right? I've had to exit a company because I just couldn't make it happen because I was so burnt out. And I think that, this is something we're going through right now, actually, which is a pivot, right? A lot of times startup founders, business owners, every one of us actually has started our company because we had a mission, right? Whether that is a passion for the industry we're in, we saw a challenge that we knew we could solve, right? We had an idea that we knew was going to, solve or help a lot of people, right? We have a reason we started our company, and that may even be freedom, right? Like we hear this all the time. I'm sure you've heard it. Freedom. That's why I started my company. I wanted freedom from my 40-hour work week and my boss. And whatever that piece is, the first thing you need to do is make sure that mission is known and written down and that you're going back to it multiple times a year. This is not something that you don't think about for 5 years and hope to like stay the course and make your 5-year goals, right? For us, we're constantly every quarter, we're revisiting what that mission is. Are the activities we're doing actually getting us closer to that mission? We sit down with our clients and say, the first question we ask is, what does success look like? What does success look like in a year? What does success look like in 3 years? What does it look like in 5 years? Right. And a lot of people look at me weird when I say that because they say, well, you're a marketer or you work in marketing. Like, why do you care what success for the big picture is? Like, why do you care if I'm exiting my company in 3 years? And it's because just like in business, there's a million things you can do, right? There's so many activities that you can put your time into. And for startup founders, for SMBs, we don't have unlimited budget. We don't have unlimited time on our calendar. And so how do you decide what to put your time into? And that's really the major piece, right? So if we have the big picture vision, and then we say, okay, what are the KPIs? How are we going to measure it? How are we going to know that we've hit that success? And what's the priorities? And then from there, you could say, okay, these are the activities we're going to do. Now, there's a difference between being tired and being burnt out, right? You might be tired because you're working really hard to hit the goal, but those activities are getting you closer to your mission, closer to your goals every single day. And that avoids burnout. And then the other piece that I always tell people is find activities outside of your business that you can still practice your skill set, but you aren't constantly working on your business, right? Because there are certain activities. So for instance, I'm an ultra marathon runner. I love to go out into the mountains and run long distances. And believe it or not, those skill sets, breaking down a goal. Okay, I have 3 miles left here, then 3 miles past there, and that's going to get me to my 50 miles, right? Or whatever the case. Mental strength, right? There's going to be times where I'm in pain and I have to get through it. These are skill sets that are going to make you better at running your business. It's going to make it easier for you to make those hard decisions and to bring on hard things and to see opportunities. And if you can find whatever that releases, but also practices your skill sets, I think that is the number one key to resolving burnout, or at least pushing it down the way. And when you feel that burnout coming, know that you need to rest, right? I have what I call reset weekends. My boyfriend knows about them. When I feel that burn, right? I just did a really hard week. I filmed a lot of podcasts. I was on client calls. I wasn't sleeping very well. I do a reset weekend. I call a reset weekend. And basically it's telling myself I don't have to feel guilty. I can do whatever I want, right? If I want to sit on the couch and binge watch trashy TV and eat terrible food, then I can do that. If I want to work on something because I'm really feeling creative, I can do that. If I want to organize my house or go out with friends, but I'm not feeling guilty that I'm not going out with friends, right? Or that I'm not doing work. And really allowing yourself that time is important, especially in the startup phase, because you're not going to be able to avoid that.
Thank you. What triggered me most in your explanation was that everyone has to define what success is for them. Because social media and all the videos, they're telling me or telling us or bombarding us even with success is a huge house. Then you have to have a vacation. You have to have this type of car, all this stuff. And you said that everyone needs to define their own success. So can you please elaborate on this? Because I find it intriguing. And I'm a huge believer that success is not one thing and that we don't all have the same goal. And even when we make the same amount of money, two people, one can be in complete misery and the other one can be on top of the world. So how would you recommend our listeners to define their own success? What should they think about when they're defining their own success?
I love that triggers you, because I think it's such a big piece of this, right? Is, success can be so many things. And like you said, I can be running a $1 billion company like Amazon and I could be miserable, and someone else could be running it and they could be loving it, right? Like that it's such a big thing. And when we're young, we all want to be the next, billionaire running a major company that's changing history. But at the end of the day, as we get older, we start realizing what's important to us. And that's different from person to person. That could be, I want the flexibility to work from anywhere. Historically, we've made our companies completely location neutral because I like the idea of being able to work from anywhere, even pre-COVID, all of those. For some people, it's a money-based thing. My brother is very money motivated. He likes to have his goals around revenue and things like that. And so it's really about what lifestyle you want. And in our country here, and society in general, we tend to pick careers and then build our lifestyle around careers. And I think that's, to me, truly why people are unhappy and why people are finding that they're jumping ship on a 45-year career or a 20-year career, and they're not happy and they're moving on to something different, is because we're building our lifestyle around a career. So we say, I want to be a doctor, and then they build their lifestyle around being a doctor, instead of saying, here's the life I want, right? I want to be able to have a big family and take a lot of maternity leave and have kids maybe, or I want to be able to cut out F5 and just make enough money so I can take a vacation every year and I can support my kids through college and I can, whatever the case may be. Or I want to have a big house and I want to have a nice car. And none of those are wrong. Here's the thing. None of them are wrong, even though society and Instagram and social media may make you feel that way. It's not. And the thing is that if you're working towards what you find as success, there's nothing wrong with having a business that only makes $500,000 a year, or a business that makes $100,000 a year. If you are making $100,000 a year, you may not have to have a team. And if you don't want to manage people, there you go. That might be success for you. The way that I always explain it, though, I have this really cool exercise, if you want to call it that, to help people figure this out, because our society and our biases are going to push us, and our brain is going to push us in whatever way we think is important. And you really have to listen to yourself as an entrepreneur. Like, learning your intuition and your gut is really important. So I call it the dinner party exercise. So go in your room, on your couch, wherever you're comfortable and you feel most calm. Shut off your lights, close your eyes. Don't write anything down, because when we write things down, our brain is going to say, well, I'm afraid someone's going to read it, or you might be ashamed, right? Don't write it down. Pretend you're going to a dinner party. Invite 5 people, 10 people who you want to impress. And this should not be family and friends in your mind, right? Because family and friends add a whole nother complexity to everything, right? But these are 5 people that you want to impress, whether these are celebrities, sports athletes, I don't care. They're 5 people. And then literally walk through a conversation with them. You're at a dinner party, walk through this conversation in your head, and then afterwards start to analyze it. Did you lie to them about what was the first question they asked you? In real life, it may not be the question they would ask you, but this tells you what your values are, right? What are you most insecure about? What are the things you lied about? What are the things that you were really proud of and you told them all about? And now start analyzing those pieces, right? if you lied about your job and told them you were something completely different, well, maybe you need to take steps to change your career. You're not proud of your career, right? Or if the first thing they asked you about was that they thought that you weren't wearing designer clothes, well, then maybe money is more important to you than you thought. You know, we all want to say money's not because we want to be altruistic and all of that. But maybe money's more important to you than it's not. And go through this conversation. And eventually you'll be able to like really do this without like sitting down and doing the whole exercise, but really kind of figure out what's the lifestyle you want. Where do you want to be? And think about like, if you want to be able to every morning go to a coffee shop and, you know, have a latte and be part of a community, well, then you need a job that gives you flexibility, a job that pays you enough to buy a latte every day, right? Because let's face it, things are expensive nowadays. A job that, you know, you can either do from the road or you can come in late, and things like that. And these are things you have to consider. So we can make money any way we want nowadays. There's so many ways to make money and to have a career. Build your lifestyle, figure out what that lifestyle is going to be, and then build your career around that. And I think that that's where success can come in.
Thank you for this beautiful explanation, and also for the dinner party exercise that our listeners can use in order to define their lifestyle. So we can agree then that being top 1% is not being success. It does not equal being successful, or it does for some people, but it might not do the job for you. So the most important is to understand what you want and then build a life around it. Did I get this correctly?
You got it 100% correct. And I think that one more piece to that is that don't listen to Instagram. Right? If you're on Instagram, I guarantee you've heard the only way to be successful is if you work 2 hours a week and make millions of dollars, or the only way to be successful is if you don't join one of those MLMs and you have an actual product business, or the only way. It really comes down to what you're going to work hard at a business, whether you are a business owner, a small business startup, you're going for money, you're not going for money, you're going to work hard. And so the only way to make that work feel really great, and there's a lot of benefit to it, is if you're going after something you love. And if you don't love it, or it's not building the life you want, you're going to burn out really fast, really fast.
Thank you for all these insights. Is there anything else you would like our listeners to take from this interview? Is there any quick tip or trade secret that you can share with our listeners?
I would say the number one thing that we are trying to solve here at Clever Cow Media every day is, or at least right now, this is our big mission, is that business owners are historically, what I have found, in a reactive mode, right? They are always looking for the solution today that they needed yesterday, that unfortunately does not come as fast as they always hope it does. And what we're trying to do is figure out, how do we put companies into proactive modes, right? So planning, strategic planning, going through and knowing all your pieces of your business, so that you can know that the activities you're doing are actually setting you closer to your goal. That is the number one key, I think, to growth, and to big growth in small business. And it's one of those things that I think that small businesses can learn from startups. So startups, you know this, if you're pitching for money, which a lot of startups do, they go through a long exercise of putting together a pitch deck, which is everything from your mission, how you're going to go to market, how much money do you need, what's your runway, like who are your buyers, right? All of this information they really work through. And small business owners, if we think of it like the analogy of building a house, right? Startups generally look at the blueprints a lot, what feature sets are needed, right? All of these pieces. And small business owners jump in and start building the house without blueprints. And so what we're trying to do here at Clever Cow is really help people build those blueprints, think about those pieces, see how investing in those pieces can help your business. get them into a proactive state so that every day is not stressful, so that owners can actually take a vacation and not burn out, and so that they can have that lifestyle that they want, whatever that may be. If I very rarely have met a business owner who said my lifestyle that I want is working 100 hours a week with no breaks and, not being able to go to a fancy restaurant, right? Like I very rarely meet someone who says that. But whatever that lifestyle they want is, it's achievable if we get them into a state where they are investing in the strategy, into those blueprint pieces, especially when it comes to marketing, business ops, and growth. So if I had to say one thing, if you took one thing away from this, is that start building your business in a proactive state versus a reactive, stressful one.
Thank you for this insight. It really resonates with me. Try to move from being reactive to becoming proactive in the future. I would like to know, where can our listeners reach you?
Yeah, I want to be friends with everyone. So you can find us on social media. So we are Clever Cow Media on both Instagram. We are actually launching 2 free YouTube shows. So you can find us on YouTube. And as always, go to clevercowmedia.com and we have all of our products, our contact form, and reach out with any questions that you have. I'm happy to help however I can.
Thank you. I will include all the links in the description below. And thank you, Nicole, for being my guest tonight.
Yeah, thank you. I love this conversation. I felt like it was a really good one.
Thank you, Mr. Faleskini, for this outstanding podcast. And thank you for listening to the Ask Faleskini podcast until the end. Mr. Faleskini would love to hear your feedback in the comments. And don't forget, if you want to know, ask Faleskini or listen to the Ask Faleskini podcast. In order to please the almighty algorithm, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.